Former five-star recruit Elijah Fisher has entered the transfer portal for the Texas Tech Red Raiders men's basketball team. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I am RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast, reminding you for the latest breaking Texas Tech news and rumors. You know what to do. Hit that subscribe button to stay in the know all year long right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel. All right, let's jump into this. Elijah Fisher, who reclassified to come to Texas Tech this year and picked the Red Raiders over schools like Memphis, Louisville, Missouri, Kentucky, and even picked Texas Tech over the G League, has now entered the transfer portal after only 1 year at Texas Tech. And you kind of look at the stats and everything like that, and it was underwhelming. I mean, let's just put it simple and plain, right? He played in 28 games, averaged 3.3 points, 2 rebounds, half an assist, shot 46% from the field, 25% from three, 58.6% from the free throw line, and had an effective field goal percentage of 49.3. Listen, his offensive game wasn't there. Let's just be real. It was lagging behind. He is not an offensive player or anywhere near it right now at the Power 6 level. Now, that's obviously hypercritical, but I think it's the truth. When you look at these games, teams were allowing him to shoot from three and really paying him no mind when doing so, really just egging him on. Like, if that's the shot you want to take, by all means. Now, here's the things that Elijah Fisher does well, and we saw it a little bit, right? He attacks the glass. He's a really good defender. His length and athleticism really create issues. The issue with Elijah Fisher, and some will say, he had a bad role, and to some degree, I agree on that front, but he was just inconsistent. And that's what freshmen are, right? Like, they are inconsistent. He was a guy that was coming up, reclassified, wanted to play college basketball this year, and in a lot of ways it showed. He was just a little bit behind in terms of the development. And now a lot of things just didn't go his way in terms of the rotation, as I mentioned, as well as just the way Texas Tech ended the season. But you look kind of what Elijah Fisher did to end the season. He had 2 of his better games, scoring 8 and 7 points respectively in the 2 of the final 4 games for the Red Raiders. And now, again, what Elijah Fisher does really well is he's athletic as hell. He can play defense, and he's just going to give you energy all the time, right? Remember, Mark Adams said at the beginning of the season, Elijah Fisher may have been their best defender. And throughout the season, there were times where I would agree with him. The issue was he was so far behind offensively, it wasn't worth the reward on the defensive end, what was going on. That being said, that changed a little bit around LSU, where he basically decided he was going to go to the boards and just absolutely attack. This overall theme of this video for Elijah entering the portal is it shouldn't be shocking, right? Like, I don't think any of us are shocked by this. But he was the highest recruit in program history. And it's crazy how things can turn in not even a year's time, right? You look at this in terms of when he committed to Texas Tech, and we're talking about May 26th, right? Like 2022. Elijah Fisher's only been at Texas Tech for like 10 months. I mean, and again, you look at some of the guys or the teams, that he picked the Texas Tech Red Raiders over. Memphis, Louisville, Missouri, Kentucky, and the G League. As I mentioned, he is the highest ranked player in Texas Tech program history, and he reclassified to 2022, and it brought him down a little bit. He was a 5-star in the class of 2023. Then he fell down to a high 4-star for 2022. It's crazy how things can turn this quickly, but before I get too much further into this and talk about other potential transfers, let me know your one-word reaction to hearing Elijah Fisher has entered the transfer portal, possibly leaving from Texas Tech. Again, I always like to say this, just because you enter the portal does not mean you're transferring. By no means am I saying that, hey, if you hire the right guy, Elijah Fisher's going to stay. I don't know that, but it's not a done deal when guys enter the portal that they're leaving. But Elijah Fisher has done just that. He has entered the portal. And this is one of the most highly decorated Canadian players of all time. It's just crazy how things have gone the wrong direction for Texas Tech in a lot of ways when it comes to their recruits this year. Outside of, Pop Isaacs, no one really lived up to expectations in that freshman class. And part of that was their own doing. I think that they would agree with that. But also just the circumstances just really didn't put them in a position to succeed early on in their careers. Listen, I've said this in a prior video when it comes to Texas Tech in this roster. I wouldn't be shocked if everybody puts their name in the portal, at least just from a security standpoint and having options. That being said, I don't think Elijah Fisher is going to be the only one that enters their name into the portal. The portal opens on the 13th of March, or opened on the 13th of March, and you look at what is going on for Texas Tech right now, and they obviously have a coaching search going on. Fardaws has already entered the portal, right? There's a lot of talk about this within the season too. Shoot, there was talk that Elijah might enter the portal during the season. Obviously, the Fardaws one got out, but now here we are. Elijah is going into the portal. Others will follow. And I think when you look at Texas Tech, you don't want to rush the process in terms of finding your head coach, but you also want to get your head coach in here. And you want to make sure that you have the ability to potentially keep some of these guys. Elijah Fisher's a piece that I would love for Texas Tech to keep long term. I think, he's a developmental project. A guy that I kind of told my friends that he kind of reminds me of was Ochai Agbaji. Like, by no means am I saying Elijah Fisher is going to be a lottery pick in 4 years, but I think that that's the kind of player he came in to be. He was a raw guy, super athletic, could play defense, but his offensive game was shaky at best. And that's what Ochai was up at Kansas, and we know what he turned into. And I think that that's the kind of player Elijah Fisher can be. It'll be interesting to see where he goes, potentially back to Texas Tech, who knows? But I do think when you look at it in terms of trying to stabilize some of these guys and keep them at Texas Tech, you're going to want to maybe accelerate the coaching process a little bit, but also at the same time, for me, I'm more fixated on Texas Tech assuring that they get the right guy. It's unfortunate that Elijah goes into the portal because, again, he showed flashes this year. I like Elijah Fisher as a player. He's undoubtedly raw. He's athletic. You're not going to find that athleticism in really a lot of players, regardless if they're freshmen or in the portal, right? So it's kind of disheartening in that regard. But overall, it's very easy to understand why Elijah Fisher is entering the portal. Again, 3.3 points per game, 2 rebounds, half an assist, an effective field goal percentage of 49.3, a PER of 11, and then a win share of 0.8. This is not what he wanted from his freshman season. It's not what Texas Tech wanted from his freshman season either. But Elijah Fisher is also kind of really describes, I think, Texas Tech in terms of men's basketball in the season that we thought a lot of this program could have. In a lot of ways, Elijah Fisher embodies that in terms of, hey, maybe we just overhyped them a little bit. They do some things really well, but overall it's a raw team because of their youth, and injuries obviously didn't help as well. But at the end of the day, Elijah Fisher from Crestwood Prep up in Ontario will be entering the transfer portal in Texas Tech. They've got some work to do in terms of roster construction. I'm RC Maxfield, reminding you for the latest breaking news in Texas Tech athletics, as well as the latest rumors regarding Texas Tech athletics. You know what to do. Hit that subscribe button to stay in the know all year long right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel.